The chapter that I read was in Johnson, Chapter 7, Behavioral Responsibility. The topic of this chapter was on behavioral responsibility. The chapter began with a scenario which I found to be very relatable to my current field. It was a scenario in which a BCBA was questioning why teachers are unable to tolerate a student acting out, but are able to accept the fact that the same student is having difficulty with their academics. It went on to state that the real issue is failing to look for ways of fixing either kind of problem. To me, this immediately grabbed my attention as it continues to be an issue of concern. Many teachers do not recognize low grades as being problem behavior. However, if a child is acting out, they immediately call for help. The chapter went on to discuss the topic of creativity. It explained that we typically call behavior creative when we are not familiar with what is created or when we are unaware of what may have influenced behavior. It continues on by explaining that it may not be considered to us to be creative. The chapter discussed that creativity is not a human quality that some have more of than others, but that it is a result of individual reinforcement histories, and creative behaviors are defined under a variety of circumstances. For example, someone who has been dancing for many years is likely to impress others with their creativity in dance over somebody who does not have that same background. If we look at it in that same perspective, it is important to note that there need to be more specific creative dimensions we wish to strengthen and arrange appropriate reinforcement contingencies if we want to see more of it. An example of this could be if a child is reinforced only when they say new words they have never said, the child may begin to say more and more words within a few days. The chapter explained that creativity presents in varying degrees from one person to another. With that perspective, responsibility is assigned for creativity within the individual and not the environment. For example, if we want a child to write a story that we consider to be creative, it is important for us to build the necessary skills and allow the right kind of opportunities and reinforcement. The chapter mainly focused on the fact that creativity is based upon experiences. The chapter continued by discussing the importance of giving credit to behavior. It mentioned the idea that praising accomplishments of others serve as reinforcers, which make efforts more likely to occur in the future. However, if we fail to offer praise, we risk weakening admirable behavior. It continued on by explaining that those individuals who show little creative tendencies may not get the same encouragement as others, which may cause undesirable side effects. The part of the chapter that stood out most to me was in the area of responsibility. It discussed the fact that creativity assigns responsibility for behavior. It explained that having an understanding of responsibility implies a self-awareness as well as the ability to choose a course of action. The box entitled, "It's Not My Fault," really grabbed my attention. It discussed the phenomenon of inconsistency when it comes to taking responsibility. It brought up the fact that in society today, people are quick to take responsibility for praiseworthy actions, but avoid blame for the behavior that is frowned upon by others. This is so true, not only with students, but adults, as well are guilty of doing this on a regular basis. We are quick to accept a compliment and claim credit when we do things people are appreciative of, in which gains us social reinforcers. However, the moment that behavior becomes problematic, we are quick to point to external environmental factors and not ourselves. I personally know that I am guilty of doing this. This proves that the concept of personal responsibility is not consistent with the nature of behavior. While we are aware of our behavior and consequences, there is no internal mechanism in which the individual is the source of their behavior. Additionally, the part of the chapter that I was able to relate to dealt with teachers who often give up on a child who misbehaves. They fail to come up with better management techniques due to the assumption that the behavior of the child reflects personal qualities, not outcomes of environmental contingencies. This prevents teachers from being able to identify or address the actual causes of behavior. This specific topic and area takes me back to the beginning of the chapter with the scenario with the ABA student conversing with her supervisor. The student stated, "I hope the day comes when teacher training prevents this kind of confusion, but I guess dealing with it is my job at this point." We learned in this chapter that, as with desirable behavior, undesirable behavior results from the environmental history associated with each different behavior, not from a vague inner motivation. Teachers are often quick to make the assumption that a child is acting out for no reason or their grades have no connection to them acting out. How could we, as professionals, help to come up with a plan for teachers to understand this concept and come up with contingencies to make undesirable behaviors less likely?